Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with a gentleman who began his entrepreneurial journey at age 19 and founded his first company at the ripe age of 21, operating a successful nutrition consulting and distribution company. He had built a multi-million-dollar venture before he was old enough to rent a car. And renting cars, that's ridiculous about how old you have to be. But anyways,
Right.
that's amazing. Soon thereafter, bought his very first home as an investment. One quickly became five, and then he became obsessed with learning everything about real estate investing and soon had over 50 investment properties. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to the president and co-founder of High Return Real Estate, Jack Gibson. How you doing today, Jack?
All right, Ben. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. So, Jack, let's jump right in. What is your story?
All right. So, when I got started in the entrepreneurial world, I was 19, as you said, but kind of what really gave me the urge to do it. I remember the day very clearly. I was 17 and I was working on my uncle's farm. And my mom, she was amazing, like raised me with this incredible work ethic. And she had all these like sayings that she taught me, many hands make light work, make hay while the sun shines, right? All this stuff. So she was always on top of me to like develop a great work ethic. And and she also had that kind of that entrepreneurial spirit, right, from growing up and developing a successful farming operation with her family. So I'm working on my uncle's farm for some part-time cash. I do like put like at least 20 hours in of like going out in his field all by myself, picking up sticks, clearing off this new acreage that he bought. And I come back and I turn in my hours and he gave me $100, $5 an hour. And I was like, probably a month before that, I just started in my nutrition company, and I sold a package, and I made $100 in like 30 minutes doing that, right? So I said to myself, never again am I going to put myself in a position where like I'm in a wage type of basis. I'm not doing that. I'm not going down that road. Profits are better than wages. So that experience, and I'm like, man, like, why did he only give me that much money for the amount of work and effort that I put in? Well, you have always, whenever you're in a wage situation, somebody else is dictating what they think you're worth. And there's always a cap on that worth. Whereas when you have your own business and you're an entrepreneur, the only cap is your own, like skills and hard work and the value that you bring to the marketplace. So I realized I needed to really focus and go all in on my nutrition business. So I started building that. Had a really slow start. In fact, it took me 9 months before I got my first check for $14. So that was my commission check, right? But I'd also made some direct sales. So I made some money along the way to keep me going. But it was when I hit that point that I realized like, okay, I got my first one. I broke the seal, so to speak. I'm like, I need to really, make this happen. So then I, really started developing a team in that company. It's a multi-level marketing operation, right? So it's not my own. It was like my own company within a larger company, and grew that to $1 million company within 24 months of starting. So the first 9 months was rough. Got some things dialed in, and then took a nice growth surge. That was all from my college dorm. So I was making more money my junior year of college than a lot of my college professors, back in 90, that would have been 98, 99, making, 80 to 100,000 a year part-time from your dorm. This wasn't too bad. So right when I got out of college, I was able to go full-time. I, turned down any job offer. I actually moved over to the west side of Michigan. I was in a small school in Michigan, but moved to the west side because Muhammad Ali lived in this town. And my college roommate worked for him. So I got to meet him and hang out with him, and that was a phenomenal experience. And then I met my wife, so we stayed put here in this little town. So this is kind of base of operations. And that then led to about I'd say 5 years ago, I'd finally decided to really take the real serious, in-depth plunge into real estate investing. I wanted to diversify my income. And I think for most entrepreneurs, I think it's very important that you diversify your income. We can have, as you probably have seen, Ben, I mean, you look like a pretty young entrepreneur, but we can tend to have an up and down journey, right? So I realized that, real estate was one of the ways where you could create real stability and a secondary source of passive income, specifically in the buy and hold sector. So I started studying and learning and diving into podcasts and reading books, going to seminars, and just trying to learn the game. And started buying up, at the beginning, started buying up what we call turnkey real estate. And that's kind of a division within the whole real estate game where it's really passive. It's like where everything is done for you. The turnkey company is really delivering you a cash flow producing asset. Like they're doing all the acquisitions, the rehabs, tenant placement, tenant management, and essentially you become more of a passive investor and pretty hands off. Well, that the returns that I was getting there, that led me to really get excited about it. I mean, I was making some really, really nice high yield. So, and it was consistent every month. So I started referring like friends and family and colleagues. I had a lot of influence and trust that I built up over the last 20 years. And so the first 12 months, I sold $5 million in real estate and cash just through my circle of influence. So that to me tells me that, as far as entrepreneurialism goes, you have to build up trust equity with other humans. And it's not so much what you know, which is important, but it's more so who you know. And do they know you, like you, trust you? So apparently I had that influence. So we started, then I realized there was a lot of limitations with the partner that I had first partnered up with. I started to see some things I really didn't like, some things that weren't adding up. Just the way he was doing the rehabs and the management, it just started intrinsically feeling like the integrity was off. So I formed my own company called High Return Real Estate. I brought in a business partner, Shecky, who's now also the CEO, and he's a digital marketing specialist. So we kind of partnered up, split equity in half. And then we've started to build out the last 2 years our own processes, our own systems, our own turnkey operation. And last year we did 100, we sold, between the two of us, we sold over 100 fix and flip properties. So it's been quite a wild ride. We've had some huge, huge ups and some massive downs. So, I mean, we can get into, whatever you want to get into, but so that's the overview of where we're at today. So
let's dive into your childhood. You mentioned how your mother was always very supportive and had all these awesome phrases for you and always taught you hard work. But what else was your childhood like? I mean, what sort of home did you really grow up in?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I mean, my parents were amazing. They were not entrepreneurial in terms of their jobs. My mom became a teacher for incredible work ethic. Always the last one to leave the school, right? Her car was always the last one to leave, and she always went the extra mile. So that taught me a lot right there, just by her example. My dad was a arson investigator for State Farm Insurance. So he would, have to, travel around the state trying to figure out if people were being integrous or not, right? So between the two of them, they were employee-minded, focus in terms of their professions, right? But they taught me a lot. My dad taught me money management skills by example. My mom taught me work ethic and how to treat people right. So between the two of them, that was my, business training as I was growing up. So when I hit the ground running, at 19, right? I had already had all this incredible training, up until that point by my parents and great role modeling, right? So I was always, I was able to independently do whatever I wanted under this umbrella of, rules that they created, right? So they let me kind of feel free to do whatever sport I wanted to do. And if I didn't like it, I could drop it or whatnot. So I got to kind of find my own way. They let me do it. If I wanted to work and create money and grab a job, they let me do it. If I didn't, they didn't care. So it was really just a great, I had a great experience as a kid. It was a fun time.
You mentioned how your mother taught you not only the work ethic, but also how to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about exactly your philosophy on that and how that has manifested itself throughout your life?
Yeah, a couple examples. My mom would always she'd bake cookies and she'd leave them in the mailbox for the mail lady. She would always say, "You treat the janitor the same as you treat the CEO. Like everybody is we're all created equal. Yes, in the marketplace we can create more value, like in terms of obviously." The amount that you're paid is dictated by the value that you deliver to the marketplace. But just as humans, we want to make sure that we're always treating other people with the utmost respect and treating them always with integrity and always keeping your word and making sure that if you say you're going to do something, that's it, period, end of story, you do it, right? So that was her. Now, as far as monetarily, she was very giving, generous. Always would, she would be the over giver and the over spender, right? And my dad was the one who was like, all right, fiscally responsible. We always have a budget. We need to save for the future. They really balanced each other out in that respect. And they're like one of the only couples that actually had separate checking accounts, right? That I know. Like in my life, I've never heard of that before. So my dad would be like, "Yeah, you owe me $20." I'm like, "What is going on here?" So I never bought into that. But so my wife wouldn't either, right? She wants free reign. So, but yeah, that's a lot of the kind of the principles that I learned. So I think I had a head start as an entrepreneur compared to a lot of other people that were my age at that time. So that gave me a quite a leg up in being able to start and achieve a successful $1 million business by the time I was 21. Like that happens for a reason because of the training that you have and the type of person that you've been taught or mentored to be leading up into the point of which you actually start the business. So I tell entrepreneurs all the time, like it's very important that you don't compare your journey, the time it takes you to grow your business, what other people are doing at a pace maybe much faster than you, because you don't know what they've been taught and the skills that they've been able to bring to the table when they started. So always, always, always be very careful of the comparison game, because it can be very, very detrimental to your kind of emotional state and your psyche, which your state is so important in terms of being able to successfully grow businesses.
You mentioned how you had a lot of freedom growing up. You could choose to do what you wanted. You could, within certain parameters, of course,
Right.
but they were
Right.
pretty flexible.
Mm-hmm.
What did you actually choose to spend your time on when you were little?
Oh, it was always sports. Yeah, if it wasn't a competition, I wasn't interested at all. Like I tried to, my mom was a piano teacher, so she would, basically force me to take piano lessons, right? And I hated it. And then, she knew that, but she was trying to teach me to be well-rounded in my skills. But eventually, she just let it go. And it's like, yeah, it's just not his thing. Like, let him go do the things that he loves to do and is passionate about. So she was like, they would realize okay, yeah, we want him to be cultured, well-rounded, but yeah, it's not working for him. So, but yeah, it was, yeah, definitely. I mean, every single sport I could possibly, do at multiple sports at a time I was in.
What drew you, and I know you mentioned competition, but what else drew you to sports? Why was that such a passion of yours?
I don't know. I mean, I love to be able to compete and to be able to win. It's like I took the Strength Finder test. They call it Strength Finder. You can search it on the internet, or Strength Finder 2.0, and you do this test, and it kind of tells you like how you're wired and what your passions are. And my number one by far was competition. So I don't know. It's just, how I've been built. And I tell people all the time, your greatest strength is always typically your greatest weakness too. So that's been the thing for me that I found that has kind of like been the biggest deficit in times as well, where I get overly competitive, I get overly driven, and then it's almost like to the point of where it's putting me in this negative state to where like I'm playing the comparison game too, right? Like I'm telling everybody not to do that, but I do it as well. So especially like in the confines of a multi-level marketing company, which is what I've done the last 20 years. In addition, now the real estate's been added on the last 5. That's a very easy environment to be very hyper competitive with other people, right? Because you're always around people that they're maybe growing in the business at a faster pace. They're hitting a higher pin level than you. You're looking at them being like, oh man, I'm better than them. I should be able to beat them. And then now you're kind of playing that game instead of really playing the game because you're passionate about it. You love what you're doing. You're happy doing it in the now versus, oh yeah, I'm going to do this so I can win later on, and doing things maybe that you're just utilizing your sheer will, which can be good for a short period of time. But if you do that as an entrepreneur, just rely upon your will to do things that you don't want to do to get a result at some point in the future. That's where your body will eventually give you signals that you're on the wrong track and you're in burnout mode. And you'll start to see physical like signs of that. Like, so I'm 41, right? Yeah, 41. And I feel like I really want to still be like 25, 30, right? like almost act that way, just stay young at heart, right? So I've realized like over the last, couple, decades that there's been points of which my body has like just, it's shown me signs that, wow, dude, you are not emotionally or mentally, spiritually, you're not on the right track. You're working for something in the future, a future payoff, versus doing it for right now, for right now's happiness, for right now's enjoyment. So that's always I think a major challenge for entrepreneurs is being able to work in the now and work in the passion zone now versus, oh yeah, someday I'll be happy if I do this.
How do you identify whether or not you're doing it for the passion versus the future win if you're in it? Retroactively, it's probably a lot easier to see.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I think the biggest thing for me is when I wake up in the morning, am I really excited to go to work? I think that's the biggest sign for myself, is if I'm like kind of dragging myself out of bed, and I'm not that excited to get up and tackle the day, then there could be something off there. Now, there are certainly always going to be times where throughout an entrepreneur's journey, even if they're operating in their passion zone and operating in the now, they don't want to get up the day because they know what the day is going to bring. Like they know it might not be pretty. They may be going through a rough patch. So, but that if it's a continuous kind of like day after day after day, month, type thing, if you're constantly like getting tired throughout the day, this is another big sign for me. Like if I'm doing something that I'm not enjoying and passionate about, I tend to get more tired. So you've got to kind of like look at, okay, your body's going to tell you a lot about what's going on inside emotionally, spiritually, mentally, right? So you just kind of you have to start watching those types of signals and I don't think there's an answer. I'm just talking about what I feel for myself. I don't know if there's an overall like right answer to that question, but I think to a certain extent, if people were really honest with themselves, they could say, you know what, I'm doing this because I love it, I'm passionate about it, and I enjoy it, versus I'm doing this because I want to get paid 5 years down the line. I want to be respected 5 years from now. I want to be at a certain level of status 5 years from now. I think that's going to be a continual hamster wheel, and that's going to keep pushing that off. Whereas if you're operating now in the enjoyment and the passion, that's going to attract to you like a magnet the status, the respect, the money, all those things will come to you eventually when you're ready to receive them.
It seems like you've developed a high level of self-awareness over the years of your mental state, emotional state, spiritual state, and then how you are versus what you want, like attracting the things that you want. How did you go about developing that? Maybe it's a mindset, or maybe it's a lifestyle. Like, how would you identify this thing that you're talking about, and how did you develop that?
It's a multifaceted approach. I knew it was about nine, yeah, it was about 9 years ago, and we were doing well. I mean, we were making a multi six-figure income. I had two boys, healthy little boys, wonderful wife, dream wife. And I just was not happy. I was a very like miserable type person almost. And I really had to take a look at like, what is really going on? Like, why am I not happy? Why am I kind of a jerk to other people? That was a feedback I was getting. I didn't think I was, but when you get enough feedback like that, you kind of have to believe it, right? So I just really started doing a serious, personal development kind of journey. Like I started getting some professional, therapy, counseling. I found a new church that was spiritually like nourishing and that I actually wanted to go to versus felt like I was obligated to wake up and go to. And I think that's a big thing, is doing things out of inspiration instead of obligation. I started reading, personal development books. I went to seminars like the Landmark Forum, Tony Robbins, and just started really like doing like I said, multifaceted approach. And I look at I hired a business coach that was kind of a business/life coach. So I do 2 calls a month with her. And really all of those things, like I can't isolate one of them and say, well, that was the game changer, right? Or that was it. It was the whole approach to whole life success. And so all of that together just started to help me really get my priorities in alignment more, and really trying to get, figure out what's really important to me. And trust me, like I've gotten off track like the last 9 years. It's not like it's been 9 years of just steady state growth, right? It's certainly been an up and down journey, but where I'm at today, I feel like as a human is so much different than where I was, 9 years ago. Like today I can cut, we give 40, 50,000 a year to charity. 9 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, this is the charity right here. Me, I'm not giving to anybody. So it's that growth as a human. And I think, for each person that, their journey is going to be different, and what they need to do and focus on to become a better human, which in turn, I think you become a better human, you're going to become a more attractive entrepreneur as well.
How, like in trying to tackle or start your multifaceted journey towards human growth, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm trying to identify it, and maybe I'm not doing it justice, but
Yeah.
when you're taking those first steps towards this growth, this omnifaceted growth, what are some of those actionable steps that you need to do in the beginning?
So I think for every, human, they're going to have to figure out, like, for things to change, they're going to have to change, right? So when things are really going good, that's the time where we're very resistant to change, extremely resistant to change as human beings. When our income's going up, when our relationship with our whoever that may be is, significant other, friends is really good. When our financial situation is good, when all those things are rocking, you're like, I don't need personal development. Everything's great. The results of my life, I'm awesome. So that's how I think a lot of what I see for myself and others. So it's really when we're in those kind of down times where things aren't clicking and they aren't working. That's when we're really at those points where we're like, oh man, I got to do something different. Like I gotta change as a person. And some people never actually arrive at that. They continually blame external circumstances, or this happened to me and it wasn't my fault. And I always say, take 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life, in all areas of life, no matter what. And then you are truly in control of being able to change your circumstances and your results. And if you keep blaming something else besides you, you're never going to be able to be willing to go through that multifaceted approach to personal development.
When you were first starting your business, right? And
Mm-hmm.
whether it was 17, 19, it seems like 17 you were working on the farm, but then you also had just started your company around 19.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we could get a little bit of clarity on that exact chronology, and then maybe you could tell us exactly how you got started with that business, what caught your interest.
Yeah, I got the chronology out of whack. Yeah, like I had worked on the farm, but then that moment of like getting the $100 lined up exactly with, when I was 19 and in summer of college, and I just started my, distributorship with the nutrition company. So yeah, anyways, just to make sure that's clear. But as far as, sorry, what was like, where were we going with that again? What was the question?
Sure.
I,
So
I got off track with the chronology.
yeah, so what caught your interest to begin with, and how did you really start that business?
So yeah, always being in, into and really looking at sports and sports performance and nutrition. I was always, trying different supplements and mass gainers. So that was always an area of interest. I mean, I would always been, going to, other, nutrition centers to try to figure out how do I put some mass on this skinny body, right? So when I first was sitting in my dorm and the college student came around, and he handed me a flyer about the the products and the results I could get: more energy, weight gain, some body fat reduction. I was interested in that, and then that kind of passion when he presented the opportunity to to sell the product and build a business. That kind of was the next layer to that, as far as, yeah, this seems to fit right into like what I enjoy doing and what I'm passionate about. So that, and, once I realized it was a passive income business, like I could create a residual based income by leveraging off the efforts of other people, creating a sales team of other distributors. That concept was, I mean, incredible to me, that I could build something now that I could continually get paid on for potentially years to come, right? And of course, there's a risk in doing that. You don't know if you build it, if it's going to last, be sustainable, or, what's going to happen in the economy. Is something going to disrupt it? All of that, right? But I did know and realize that, I thought we were on the beginnings of a kind of a nutritional type of supplement type revolution back in, in the 90s. I mean, I could see that the trend seemed to be heading that direction. So I thought that this could be a sustainable business for potentially decades to come. And obviously it's a food product, so People are going to always need to be consuming food no matter, what. So it did work out, right? What I did back when I was 19, I'm still getting paid on today in a pretty big way.
What were those first actionable steps that you took to start building that business?
Well, we didn't, surprisingly for people on probably your audience age range, we had the beginnings of email, but there was no social media, right? We didn't even have MySpace. So there was no way to utilize some of the great networking tools and technology that we have today, right? Websites were very, very rudimentary and just, we were on dial-up internet, so it took forever to load, so nobody really did that. So it was really all person to person. I went to, God, I hated it, but I did it. I went to Walmart and put out flyers on cars, and I put out signs on telephone poles. I put ads in newspapers. Like those were old, the old school ways, but that's how you got a message out. And now, it's so awesome for the current generation, right? The millennials, what they have compared to what we have. And I feel like I'm talking like my parents did, about the phone, like the rotary phone, right? Or, didn't even have, cell phones or all that, right? I feel like I'm having that conversation. But just to be able to have gratitude and appreciation for the current level of technology, because right now you can push a button, type up something, post a picture, push a button, and you can reach potentially thousands of people almost instantaneously for very nominal cost. To do the same thing, to reach the same amount of people with a marketing message, when I started, late 90s, it was a lot of grind and physical effort, and it cost a lot of money to be able to do the same thing. So those that are kind of getting started are going and growing in the business 5 times, 10 times, 20, sometimes 30 times faster than what I was able to do. And I've had them say like, well, if I was, in the business as long as you, I'd be way bigger and my business would be so much far ahead than where yours is. I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. You have no idea of the technology difference advantage that you have today than what we had before. So such an awesome moment in time to be able to be an entrepreneur and be able to, get your marketing message out there to the masses.
When you went from I'm starting a business, I'm 19, I'm awesome, I'm in college, to then you built it into this multi-million-dollar business.
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking at that time? What were you feeling? Like, what was that like for you?
At what age? Because I was like 21, 22, it was about $1 million in sales, per year. And it really wasn't until maybe, I'm trying to think, what did I hit 2 million mark? Probably would have been like 27, 28, 29 in there. So then, I'm actually creating a multi-6-figure income, right? So which kind of age range are you looking at with the question?
I'd actually love to talk about all those different benchmarks.
Yeah, well, I think that people have to understand that. Here's what I tell my guys when they make 100,000 a year. I'm like, you know what? Honestly, bro, that is not that much money. I tell them that because I'm like, how much money are you able to really legitimately save per month on even 10 grand a month? That's 120,000 in a year. Like, you're really not. If you live in America, by the time you have, decent car insurance, sell, housing, food, do some fun things, taxes, business expenses, right? It eats away all of that. So I just try to challenge my guys, and I tell my guys, like my younger sales reps, you guys got to think bigger. Like, you have to think way bigger, and you have to really increase your financial kind of mindset so that you don't get to, make 100,000 and then think you've arrived, or think that you're like, you're big stuff, or think that, oh yeah, this is like financially I'm good, because it's not the case in America today. I mean, to really live a really cool lifestyle, I think you need, personally 40, 50 grand a month. And, of course that takes time, to do that. So to me, it's like, okay, I want to live a great lifestyle, have a, I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I want to be able to be an awesome giver, and I want to be able to be a great saver and investor. So all of those things, you need to be making some cash. And in today's economy, with the way and the technology that we have today, it is very possible if you provide the right value to your to the market.
So you were talking about how you have to really increase your, I guess, mental financial capacity, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually go about doing that, or how have you done that in your life?
Yeah, books, seminars for sure. Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, As a Man Thinketh. Those are kind of my cash flow quadrant. That's by Robert Kiyosaki. Those are probably my top, 5. I've gone to, wealth building, wealth type seminars, and getting and surrounding yourself too with people that are making higher income than you as well. Typically they say you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around most. Well, I figured out, okay, the 5 people I hang around most, do they actually have to like be in proximity and know me? No, it could be through a podcast or a book, right? That's how I kind of hang around them and get their mindsets around me. If you look at, whether you love him, as our president or not, right? Donald Trump as a financial mindset type of person, he was, millions and millions of dollars in debt. And he came out of that, right? Because his financial mindset is set in the billions, right? So it didn't matter, okay, he goes down, he wasn't even broke. He was beyond broke, right? In so much massive debt. But he figured his way out of it because of his financial mindset and IQ. He just thinks at a much higher, level than the ordinary human. So, I'd look at that and okay, how do I be able to increase my ability to think at a bigger scale so that I can be able to not only attract more wealth to me, but be able to not only attract it, but be able to keep it and expand it and hold on to it. So I've still continually got work to do there, because I've sabotaged myself at times, and I'm look at that and there must be something subconsciously going on that I've got to continually try to figure out and work on so that I can attract and make a lot of money and also keep it, stabilize it, and expand upon it.
So you moved from the distributorship company, or I'm not sure if that's the proper word, but the distribution company, to the real estate space. How did you really get that to take off? What actionable steps did you take to really set that real estate business into motion?
So yeah, it definitely wasn't I wouldn't say move. It was kind of an ad, because I'm still very active in the nutrition business. That is, we're definitely growing that business and still very committed and we're engaged in it every day. So having 2 companies has been very much a struggle because of the kind of diverted focus, right? It's I'm not 100% mentally committed to either one. So it's really been really the key to the success of both of them is just the people and the teams that I put together with both companies. So I'm that's what I did learn in sports growing up, right? Is the success of, what you do individually is largely due to the team of people that you're surrounding yourself with, or, sometimes in team sports, like you don't have that choice. Whereas in business, you have 100% like full choice responsibility of what kind of team that you put together and who you surround yourself with. So, which is awesome about business, right? So I put together, the first step was, a great business partner that complemented me, which was Shecky. He was a digital marketing consultant for me in my nutrition business. I got to know him through multiple consultation calls. I loved the way he showed up as a person, like just sincerity, integrity, and the way he had more structured thinking than I do and systematic thinking. And his knowledge and skill set about, digital marketing was something that, I knew he had spent years to get to that level. So when we were on a consultation call and I was first originally planning out this real estate, business and telling him about what I was doing, I was selling properties but I wanted to take it to the next level and really brand the company. He gave me a plan, and then I got off the consultation call with him, right? I look at the plan. I'm like, there's no way I can do this on my own. I just don't see that I'll physically, time-wise, mentally, emotionally be able to handle this, right? So I emailed him back. I said, hey man, will you be my partner on this 50-50? Like, let's go do this together, and let's build a profitable company. And he emailed me back, and because I didn't think he would do it, because I thought he had already very successful as a consultant, right? And he's like, yes, I'm in 100%. Let's go. So we started, just strategically figuring out what do we need to do to be able to create a national brand with what we're doing. So we built, and I was at a Tony Robbins seminar. I met these two guys that I really liked, like their skill sets and being able to design a really high caliber website with search engine optimization marketing. One of my clients, Nicole, I just loved her personality. So we brought her in as a sales rep, and she sells all of our property for us. Shecky has hired a technology guy to help run all of our back-end technology. So the partnership with us, and then we just started, between the two of us, adding layers of team along with us. And then we've partnered up with and created our partner companies, which does all of our property management, and they do all of our acquisitions, and they're starting to take over all the rehabs. So it's just been this process of kind of piecing all these different people together. But I mean, it's all about the team. It's all about the people and the team. That's the value of a company, is the team.
It seems like one of the things that has been a recurring theme throughout all of your success is the team that you've been able to build. Can you talk about how you actually go about building that team? Like, what are your strategies for building a high caliber, high functioning team?
Well, I think that, I always say if you're a level 6 type of leader, then in all likelihood, you're probably not going to be able to attract a level 8, a 9, or a 10 type person. So who are you as a human person, leader? Where are you at? And that's why I think the number one investment that anybody can make is always into themselves. There's not a business, there's not a stock, there's not a real estate investment, even though we sell pretty high yielding real estate investments. None of that can even remotely compare to somebody investing back into themselves. So any money, like initially, I mean, I was putting it back into myself with seminars and books and hiring coaches and all that, just trying to grow my own leadership and that type of interpersonal development skills, so that knowing that if I become a higher caliber person, I'm going to be able to attract higher capital people, higher capital, right? Higher capital, higher caliber as well, type people to me. So that's my best advice, how to put that team. I mean, looking at, like in terms of who to bring on in your team. I mean, of course, when you're first starting out, finances are going to dictate a lot of that. So you've got to be working oftentimes like in your business when you're first starting out, and that is doing the grind, making the sales, taking on a lot of different aspects of the company. And then as you start to scale, you start to make more money, then you're going to be investing into the infrastructure of your company by hiring more people, maybe giving up equity in your company by bringing on partners, maybe, I don't know, it depends, right? But that's where, you got to start looking at, as far as if you're going to scale, the only way to really scale is you're going to have to create and add more people to your team. It's very difficult to scale as a lone man operation.
As you've been developing and growing your businesses over these decades, what have you identified as your strongest skill set? I mean, what things do you really bring to the table?
I think I'm really good at sales, and I do have a marketing mind, although I know I can kind of know like when something intrinsically, I think something's going to work, like a certain strategy. The implementation of that strategy, I usually have to get somebody else to do. Like, for example, I would never have a clue how to get, search engine optimization and get ranked top of the line on Google. Like I do not even remotely have or desire to have that skill, right? I don't know how to run Facebook ad campaigns. I have to find somebody that has that skill. I think for certain parts of the business, that'll work. I don't know really how to work Instagram, but I know how to hire the girl like on my team that does that for my nutrition business. Like, she knows how to take the right photos. She knows when to post, hashtags to use, right? So I realize like what the strategy is needed. And then I know like, okay, here's the type of person that I need to be able to implement that. And then you got to pay them what they're worth.
So we've talked a lot about all the things that you've done in your past, but can you really talk about what your biggest focus is right now?
Well, I mean, there's, I guess it depends on which company. So I'll just start with the biggest focus in the nutrition company is hitting what's called the 5 diamond level. And that's a significant difference in lifestyle when you hit that. You get some incredible vacations and rewards and bonuses and everything. And we're at 3 diamond right now. So, we have to figure out how to develop 2 more people to the diamond level, which essentially is a pretty, it's like the top 1%, right? So, it's always been on my like burning desire list, even for the last 20 years. Ultimately, that was always the goal. And then on the high return real estate side, I really, we want to get to the point where we just have a completely automated system to where Shecky and I, we can show up on a podcast like this. We can do a team meeting once a week, and we can kind of look at, what's working and what's not working, kind of direct the team on what to focus on. And then, maybe we talk to the high ticket, high net worth clients only, right? And everything else, all the minutia, all the problems and challenges and sales and everything else is completely delegated out. And that way we're doing what we love to do and what we want to do, versus right now we feel like in building out the company, we're still doing and taking on a lot of things, each of us, that we absolutely don't want to do, but we know we just have to do them temporarily in order to get to the space to where we can completely be free of those activities. So yeah, it's not like so much a sales goal. I mean, certainly we have sales goals in the real estate company. We have, income goals that we want to hit to make it all worthwhile to do it. But we want to kind of really make sure that we're at the point in the company where we're like in our lanes and we're doing what we love and are passionate about doing inside the scope of the company.
We've talked a lot about your professional life. But can you talk about what's been going on in your personal life parallel to that?
Well, we live a pretty, awesome lifestyle. I mean, we've just in the last month we were skiing on the hills of northern Michigan at Boyne Mountain, and then the next week we're in my wife and I are in Las Vegas for 5 days, and then just got back from Cabo San Lucas on Monday, and then Sunday we leave for Singapore and Thailand for 11 days to collect a pretty substantial bonus check, and then get back, settle in, watch March Madness, on the five TVs I've got as a kind of a sports bar in my basement, and hang out with the kids for a couple months before we go on, 3 vacations this summer. So as our life is pretty spectacular lifestyle wise, and we get to do what we want to do, and all of that is incredible. I would say, the last year has been massive highs and massive lows. I mean, we sold 100 properties, but we had a lot of former partners, theft, former employees that their lack of integrity kind of hurt our profitability in our company. So we didn't make the money that we really should have made for the value and the time and effort we put into the company, right? For flipping 100 properties in 1 year, you should get a pretty nice paycheck. And neither of us took a paycheck last year. So if that tells you anything. So that was a very stressful time, put a lot of pressure on the two of us, extreme amounts of pressure. That pressure then carries over into my, home life with my wife. So then she has to take the brunt of that. And thankfully, she's an incredible, supporter, human being, wife. So we worked our way through it, and we're at the tail end of that, working our way out of it. And hopefully on to greener pastures until the next set of challenges and opportunities arise, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Hope that answers that question.
On this journey, right? You mentioned a lot of highs and lows, and I know we've talked about some of the lessons that you've learned from them. But can you really drill down and share the biggest takeaways that you've gotten from those lows, from those points where you may have been like, oh man, is this all freaking worth it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think those times are really important for an entrepreneur because it really helps to keep you humble and keep you grounded and just make sure that you kind of don't maybe get I don't know what the word is, out of control as a person, but kind of that way. You know, if you look at some of the kids that they're just kind of given everything and it's just a one big they didn't have to go through those really rough times, right? I mean, they have a very high propensity to drug use. They have a very high propensity to alcohol abuse. They have a very high propensity to massive swings of depression and, a lack of fundamental purpose in their lives, right? So I almost feel, to a certain extent, I feel bad for people that had that were given so much that they didn't get to experience the really, really low times, the times where they didn't make much money, the times where things were not going their way and they didn't have anybody to kind of boost them up, so to speak. Because those are the times where I found for me that have been the most important as a character development. So I think what Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest, not the, but one of the greatest, right, basketball players of all time, he said and talked about what he calls the beauty of the pain. And he wrote you guys can Google it, and he wrote an article that talked about how he was in the midst of kind of the final years of the final couple years of his career, and he had torn his Achilles, and it was a massive injury, and it was very difficult for him. And he was also, I think his team was also losing pretty bad, right? And he said, I have to enjoy, kind of perversely, but enjoy this beauty of this pain, because these really, really low times are what allow me to really massively appreciate the championships and the big wins. So I don't look at these low times as like, this is like, I'm depressed. I'm so, like angry and bitter. I look at these as almost like a blessing that I need this in order to really truly appreciate all these awesome times that I've had. And I can't, I'm disrespecting the game, so to speak, the game of basketball, the game of life, if I say woe is me and poor miserable me. So I always look at that, I'm like, this past year, it's really been the beauty of the pain. Like, I've had to make sure that I've enjoyed life and not let this year just be a dark, like, year of my life, and just try to create as much light in it as possible while we were going through, some really, pretty tough times. So um, that was, to me, was so fundamentally huge over the years, not just this past year, but over the last, 20 years of my entrepreneurial journey, just trying to understand, like, hey man, it's the beauty of the pain right now, but it's not going to last forever. It's going to get better, and I'm going to have my good times, and my time's going to come. And then when it does come, I'm going to enjoy it.
Jack, I want to thank you so much for coming on the interview today. It's truly been an honor to share this time with you. I have a few more questions for you, and then we can wrap on up.
Sure.
One of the foundations of this show is connection, right? And I'm obsessed with connection, and learning about it and mastering it and delving deeper into it, as deep as I possibly can go. So by that vein, I'm really interested to know, what is your philosophy on establishing deep, meaningful, and authentic human connection?
I feel like you have to be interested in other people versus trying to be interesting. And it's a big distinction. Being interested is genuinely and truly like caring about other people, what's going on in their life, how you can make their life better, how you can make an impact on them, what can you do to bring value to them. When you show up, do you bring them energy or do you take energy away? Versus being interesting is kind of an ego thing. This is where you need to be, you need to be the one talking all the time. You need to be the one that's, so to speak, showing off, what you have or what you've accomplished. So people they can see your true colors. They can see that, they can see through that. And I don't think people that truly are trying to be interesting are ever really they're going to have a blockade up. It's going to be tough for them to build truly authentic, as you said, deep connections with other people. And I think it's difficult to have, like, you can't have 100 deep connections with other humans, right? Like that's tough. I mean, that's a lot of time and bandwidth to be at that kind of level, right? But you can certainly, you can have your core people that you have really those really deep connections with, like, the leadership on my team. We have awesome connections, and not always, right? There's times where we're not seeing the same way, so that's going to happen. I mean, my wife and I certainly have that. Okay, right? I mean, it's part of human relationships, but by and large, we have very good, like, awesome connections, and that's really, to be honest, like, that's the joy of the human experience. And Brian Tracy said 85% of your happiness in life will be due to your relationships with other humans. And I say, oh, there's a flip side to that. 85% of your misery in your life is due to your relationships with other human beings. So which side of the equation do you want to be on? I always choose the positive side of that equation.
You mentioned how one of your biggest skill sets is the ability to sell and make sales. Do you feel like your ability to build connection with other people has been instrumental in your ability to sell?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I was just thinking the other day, there's sales books out there about don't take no for an answer, and be aggressive, and call on people multiple times, and mirror people's, like, if they where they put their hands, you put your hands, where they how they sit, you sit, all that. And I'm like, I've never done any of that stuff, like, ever. And I've got a business that did 12 million and then one that did 6 million in its second year, right? So, like, I don't ever do that. All that I've ever done in terms of being able to sell is just, hey, nice firm handshake, look people in the eye, give them respect, like, ask them questions about them, build a connection, be authentic, always, always, always keep your word, come across as if don't come across, but actually genuinely care to, like, increase their life with the value that you're going to offer them. And if you do those things, I think everybody can be an amazing salesperson. They don't have to be this hyper aggressive, slick, willy type salesperson. Like, I think in today's day and age, I don't know, it's almost like a turnoff. People don't want to be sold, they want to buy. So I just create opportunities where people feel comfortable and trusting doing business with me.
I love that idea of, not trying to force people to, or not trying to force sell to people, but create an environment where they feel comfortable to buy. I think that's a brilliant sentiment. One of the other things that I'm really interested in is how you manage your time between your two businesses, right? Because it seems like you have two very successful businesses. I mean, what are some of the keys to, and you mentioned building the team, and you leveraging your team to help you, but I mean, how do you solve that problem of, like, okay, I have this decision to make here, this decision to make there, and my focus is split? Like, what do you do to prevent yourself from just getting torn between the two?
Yeah, I don't. I don't. It's a definitely, it's pandemonium, you know. I mean, I'll get one text, two texts from, one business. The next text is, the other, and it's back and forth all day. And, I'm on a call about, a potential, negative person we need to kind of figure out how to remove from our environment on the nutrition business this morning. Now I'm on this podcast more talking about, I've talked about both companies, right? But, and then now I'm, probably the next step, I'm going to go do taxes and for the real estate company. And then the next one after that is back to, a nutrition conversation. So the whole day is just, there's no, I haven't figured out how to, block exactly one day. Like, for example, I'm just focusing on real estate. I don't think that would be good for me to do that. So I just have to kind of just have to figure it out as I go through the day. I don't know. Maybe I kind of like the chaos too. It keeps me interested. So I kind of try to just say, okay, you know what? Embrace the chaos. Embrace it.
So Jack, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I have two more questions for you, and then we'll wrap up.
All right.
The first is there anything about yourself that you think is an important part of who you are that I did not ask you about today? In other words, what did I miss?
Well, I have to say, this was absolutely by far the most in-depth interview that I've ever had. So, like, you did a really, really deep dive and pretty impressive. Obviously your audience is geared, right? You're gearing them towards this style of podcast, because we've been on podcasts where, we 15, 20 minutes. What kind of deep dive are you doing on that? You're really not. Very surface level. So you I mean, brother, I don't know what else you could ask that I can think of at the moment. You did a pretty awesome, comprehensive dive, so I appreciate it, man. What an opportunity this was to really share my full journey. It was incredible.
Well, thank you. I'm just asking the questions. You're doing the hard work here, so thanks to you, my friend.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I'm 24, right? I have a couple different businesses. We talked about that a little bit
Hmm.
before. This show is truly my greatest passion. What question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Maybe you're going to ask it, but maybe the question would be: is there anything that you want to promote or that could bring extra value to your listeners potentially? So that would be. I don't know if maybe you were going to wrap up with, or how do listeners get a hold of you if they want to follow you, that sort of thing. So, but you probably already going to ask that. So.
Well, let's do it. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, let's go into it.
So, I think, and I've kind of talked about and alluded to it, I think it's very important as an entrepreneur to create multiple streams of income. And in the real estate game, particularly, I found that there are a lot of sharks, a lot of as in, there's a lot of bad people that will take advantage of you in certain, situations. And I've been through that myself on my uh, transition from, or transition into, stock market investing and getting out of that and into real estate investing, right? And that was part of the passion why high return real estate was formed, is that I got tired of getting kind of, taken advantage of, so to speak. I wanted to create a company that was 100% integrous and that we would always do what's right to serve our investors no matter what. So if any of your listeners are, and they may be to the point where they're just building up cash flow, probably with their age range, a lot of them are, and they're not at the point yet where it's even smart to like diversify and buy real estate investments. But if they're at that point, they've got a, cash they're looking to deploy, create an extra stream of income. I mean, our company can absolutely help them to do that. But of course, I want it to be the right thing. If somebody has, we are, say our properties are, a lot of them around $50,000 range, which I know that seems low, but we're in great cash flow producing markets. Um, but so an entrepreneur has 50 grand in cash available. I would say do not invest it with us. You need to put that into yourself and into your own company. And that's what you're going to get the biggest ROI with that cash. Like, figure out a way to deploy that and reinvest it back into those two things. But if you start to create extra cash beyond that, you want to figure out how to, deploy, then we're can go to our website, highreturnrealestate.com. And on the nutrition game, we're still searching for the fifth diamond, sixth diamond then. So we have a website, bodytransformationcoach.com. You can go check out our system. It's an online transformational challenge, and get a hold of me through that. So either of those two websites would be a great way. You can check me out and check out what our companies do and connect with us if you're interested. So other than that, but if nobody ever contacts me, that's entirely possible, I created some value for all your listeners with the journey. You know what? I won, we all win.
Well, thanks again, Jack. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and to everybody who's listening, I want to thank y'all so much. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching and listening. I love you guys, and y'all are the reason that I get to do what I do, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you very much.
All right.
And this has been another Project Egg interview where we get to talk to incredible entrepreneurs, just like Jack here, so that you can build your business, create your dream life, and we can all live in a better world together. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.